Alright, I'm trying something new just for YouTube called Abraham Piper Says Too Much. That's me, and I'm going to say too much. Most of the videos I put out on the internet are 1 minute, which means I often get people asking for clarification or disagreeing with me. So why not take a few minutes here on YouTube where there's some freedom and expectation to have longer videos, and I don't want to say explain myself because that's boring and defensive, but you know, say more. I don't love it. It's not my preference of genre, but we might have a good time. Let's find out. I posted a video recently about how atheism and theism are only different linguistically. Not that atheism is the same as every theism, but I argued if you're an atheist and you believe in the existence of something that a theistic tradition calls God, then you believe in their God, you just don't call it that. Anyway, that got some feedback, so let's look at it. Actually, first I'll let you watch the video. Now, I'm not trying to get hate from both sides of the theist or atheist debate, but the question of whether or not you believe in God is only linguistic. It's just a question of what words we prefer. Because if there's even a single tradition out there that believes in something that you also believe in, but they call it God and you don't, then the only difference is vocabulary. So take pantheistic traditions, for example. Pantheism can be roughly summarized as the idea that the sum of all of reality is God itself. So if you accept that reality exists, like most of us do, you literally believe in their God. You just don't like calling it that. Which is fine. I don't either. Feels weird. But it's just different jargon. It's sort of like the conversation around what to call fizzy drinks. There's a subset of fizzy drink drinkers who call it Coke, branding it way too specifically. This is like the monotheists. Setting them aside for a second, there's still the silly pseudo debate about whether it's soda or pop. Regardless of the answer, the question isn't about what's real. We agree about that. Fizzy drinks exist. We just don't like what other people call them. Lady Shanimal says, love our daily walks. Well, in this new show, we're going to do some daily sitting. What I'm saying is, if there is a theistic tradition that says something like, for instance, the entirety of reality is God, then an atheist who believes that reality exists believes in that theist's God. Now, if that theist says, and all of reality is bent on doing us good or something, add some sort of personality to it, well, then they disagree. But not all pantheistic traditions do that. You guys hear the music in the next room? That might be our soundtrack for the rest of this video. Here's a pagan who said, this brought them a smile. That's always nice to hear. I haven't read this comment yet, but it starts out strong, so I like it. Let's see where they go. This argument feels disingenuous. Using this logic, all debates are linguistic debates. Except that I didn't say all atheism and all theism are the same except for semantics. I didn't say that. I said atheism accepts the existence of some theistic gods. Not all of them. Of course, an atheist doesn't believe in the sort of superhero type God that some religions posit. But if there is a religion that says God is something that that atheist agrees exists, then the only difference is the word. I don't think this is going to make for a very interesting show. Okay, this person says, I can't find many parallels between atheism. This isn't their whole comment. I'm reading the trenchant part. I can't find many parallels between atheism and religions that specifically believe in a benevolent, omniscient, omnipresent higher power. I agree. I'm not saying that atheists agree with that kind of theism. I'm not saying those are only different because of words. Oh. Okay, this is one of my favorite comments. This person said, very enjoyable and refreshing few minutes. It was 54 seconds. So it might have been enjoyable and refreshing, but it definitely felt long. I cannot disagree. Cats are actually interdimensional beings that can read our minds, called smoogles. Now, it's clear that since everyone agrees that cats are real, our only difference of opinion is linguistic. Parenthesis. This is an extreme example, I know, but I'm pointing out how reductive this argument is as a whole. Well, that is not a parallel of my argument at all. Because I said, if an atheist encounters a theistic tradition with a God that they agree exists, not with a God that is absurd. So I'm going to move on from that comment. Flying Pig Art Glass says, I have to scroll past you when I'm high, but I bet you'd be fun in person. I'm more fun on the internet. If you don't like me on the internet, you'd probably like me better in real life. If you find me dull in real life, that's what the internet is for. This ignores the materialist view of some atheists. Sure, I believe in reality, but not a spiritual divine aspect. That's not a vocabulary difference. So this is a similar misunderstanding to some of the comments that have come before. If the theistic tradition posits a God that the atheists don't believe in, then I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about traditions that look at existence and just call the universal experience divine. It's a descriptor, that's all. Now, it's a descriptor that affects how these traditions interact with the world, but that doesn't change that their God is simply reality. Here's the kind of comment that would annoy me if I were emotionally engaged in making sure people agreed with me. Completely disagree. The difference between theism and atheism is whether or not a person believes in a loving purpose behind the existence. Well, Matthew, no. No. They're claiming that all theism not only has a purpose, which isn't true, but also is loving. I certainly don't know enough to believe that that's true. I'm impressed if they do. Okay, this person said, I hear your point, but it isn't only linguistic. It is also conceptual. Even people who use the word God don't necessarily agree on what that word means. The concept of God, whether you believe in God or not, is highly varied. I know. We wouldn't be talking about this at all if... The concept of God is highly varied. Therefore, not all atheism disbelieves in all gods. What I'm saying wouldn't be true if the concept of God weren't highly varied. I'm not saying atheists believe in every god because it's just a language issue. I'm saying there is almost certainly a tradition out there with a god that you believe in as an atheist. You just don't want to call it God. I didn't do a very good job with this video. I had fun with it, but I don't think I made anything clear. This person says, what do you call facial tissue? Because if it's Kleenex, you can't hate on us for calling it Coke. Good point. I'm convinced. Someone replied to their comment, literally no one calls tissues Kleenex. That's a silly reply. It's kind of funny for someone to say literally no one says about anything. How can you possibly know that? This person says, I feel like the terms we use are just a means to an end. If you mean something different by God, fine. But I still don't find it comfortable using the word because of what most people mean by it. Same. I said that. I agree. I'm not comfortable calling reality God. But some people do. And I agree that reality exists. So their God exists. This person is saying something similar, but from a pantheistic rather than atheistic perspective. This person says, as a pantheist, using the word God feels wrong because I don't mean a separate entity in the sky or something. Yes, exactly. They go on, I just mean the energy that is life. I love that wording. That is a physical, non-spiritual, non-divine way to reference it. I don't want to call it God because I don't want people thinking I'm a part of a different religion, mostly Christian around me. But what else would I call it? I love the tension that they're living in. I think that's fantastic. This is my favorite comment so far. Here's a long one disagreeing. Okay, I get the gist of it, but we're talking about fizzy drinks which are demonstrable and comparing them to a concept that has, at least in the case of monotheism, pause. I'm not talking about monotheism. I literally said in the video, we're setting the monotheists aside. Let's keep going. Abstract concepts can be given names, but naming it does not make it less abstract. And I think that nuance is what's missing in this analogy. Okay, but why are they assuming that God is an abstract concept? It isn't in every tradition. It is for many religions, all monotheistic religions, for instance, but that's not every theism. Jesus Christ. What this comment section shows me, among other things, is that there's a very narrow view of what theism is, at least among the English speakers replying to this video. They have a very constricted sense of what the word God can mean. And of course, that's going to make them disagree with what I'm saying because they don't have a category for God being something other than the one that, killed Jesus or whatever. But I find that to be a very parochial disbelief. Like, why don't they broaden their cynicism? If you want to disagree with the whole concept of God, you should understand what the concept of God is for more people than a few monotheistic religions. It's not that it's bad to build your whole shtick around thinking superhero gods don't exist. It's just smaller than disbelief can be. Disbelief is a very interesting experience, and it can be wider. There's a train going by. We'll find out how that affects the sound in this new show. Because I can't stop every time a train goes by. In my experience, the broader you make your cynicism, like move past the religion of your upbringing perhaps, the more you disbelieve, you will eventually come upon people who live life religiously but believe factually very similar to you. The world's a big place. There are a lot of traditions. That's not going to happen for everyone. It doesn't need to. There's nothing important about that happening. It's just interesting that it can. That's all I'm saying. That's all I ever try to say. I'm not interested in changing anyone's mind. Jesus, how boring. I don't want people to become like me. Quote, I believe in God, only I call them nature, close quote. Then they say, not sure who to credit the quote to, but it's as close as I personally get to admitting the existence of a deity. I looked it up. Frank Lloyd Wright said that. The exact quote is, I believe in God, only I spell it nature. I appreciate that quote as a summary. If there is someone out there or a tradition out there that calls nature God, then the only thing an atheist can disagree with is whether or not to accept the name. They don't deny the existence of nature. Now, if you add anything to nature to make it God, then there's more to disagree with. But if it's just nature, not a pall of spiritualism, but just nature, and someone calls it God, then you believe also that their God exists. This is now the 5th or 6th time I've said this. I don't feel like I'm making it clear. It's quite likely, if you're an atheist, that you can find a theism in the world, in history, where you only differ semantically. What difference does that make in your life? First of all, I don't care. Second of all, well, I guess this is the same thing. It's fine if the answer is none. I'm just making an observation that I thought was interesting. I am not looking forward to editing this video. I'm experimenting with this for fun. I hope it gets more fun than this one was. Thanks for watching, I guess. See ya in episode 2, maybe.